The Valkyrie Empire had ruled the stars for 10,000 years. They had conquered 47 worlds. They had destroyed civilizations that were older than Earth itself. In all that time, they had never lost a single war. Not one. Their ships were fast. Their weapons were powerful. Their soldiers were trained from birth to fight and kill. The galaxy feared them, and the Valkyrie liked it that way. High Commander Dral stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the small blue planet on his screen. Earth, a tiny world filled with primitive creatures who had never traveled beyond their own moon. His scouts had watched these humans for many years. They had seen their wars, their weapons, and their weaknesses. The reports were clear. Humans were divided. They fought each other over land, money, and ideas. They were weak. They were easy. Dral laughed when he gave the order. He sent 9,500 ships to take Earth. It was the smallest fleet he had ever used for an invasion. He considered it a training mission, a chance for young officers to learn how conquest worked. He expected the whole thing to be over in a few days. The fleet jumped through space and arrived near Earth's moon. The ships spread out across the sky like a dark cloud. They blocked the sun over entire continents. They wanted the humans to see them. They wanted them to be afraid. General Park Jae-ho was eating lunch in the Pentagon when the first alarm rang. He was 58 years old. He had gray hair and tired eyes. He had fought in 3 wars during his long career. He had seen friends die. He had made hard choices. He thought he understood war better than most people. But when he walked into the war room and saw the satellite images, his heart stopped. Ships. Thousands of ships. They filled the screen like stars in the night sky. They were huge. Each one was bigger than an aircraft carrier. And they were coming closer. How many? Park asked. His voice was calm, but his hands were shaking. We count approximately 9,500 vessels, sir, a young officer answered. They will reach optimal attack position in 72 hours. Park closed his eyes for a moment. 72 hours. 3 days. That was all the time humanity had left. 3,000 miles away in California, Dr. Kim Soo-jin sat in her office at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. She was 34 years old, with long black hair and glasses that she always pushed up her nose when she was nervous. She was pushing them up a lot today. Her computer showed the same images that Park was seeing, but Soo-jin saw something else. She saw the patterns. She saw how the ships moved together, like birds flying in formation. They are talking to each other, she whispered to herself. Some kind of network. They share information. She wrote this down in her notes. She did not know yet how important this discovery would be. The President of the United States went on television that night. Every channel showed his face. Every phone buzzed with emergency alerts. People stopped what they were doing and listened. My fellow Americans, the President said, and my fellow human beings around the world. We are not alone in the universe. An alien fleet has arrived in our solar system. They have sent us a message. They demand our complete surrender. They want our planet. They want our resources. They want us to kneel. He paused. His eyes were hard. We will not kneel. We will not surrender. We will fight. The world changed in that moment. Old enemies stopped fighting each other. Countries that had hated each other for centuries suddenly became friends. Russia called America. China called Europe. India called Pakistan. The message was the same everywhere. We must work together. We must share everything. We must survive. In a small apartment in New York City, a young woman named Moon Arrow watched the president's speech. She was 22 years old and had just finished her training as an army medic. She had joined the military to help people, not to fight wars. But now a war was coming. The biggest war in human history. She picked up her phone and called her commander. "I am ready," she said. "Tell me where to go." Across the country, millions of people did the same thing. Soldiers reported for duty. Retired veterans put on their old uniforms. Factories that made cars started making weapons. Scientists stopped their research and started working on defense systems. Ordinary people learned how to fight, how to shoot, how to survive. The Volcari watched all of this from their ships. They had seen this behavior before on other worlds. The panic, the desperate preparation. It always ended the same way. The primitive species would fight for a few days, maybe a few weeks. Then they would break. They would surrender. They would become slaves. High Commander Drell was not worried. He was bored. He wanted this to be over quickly so he could return home, but he did not understand humans. He did not know what they were capable of. He did not know about the secrets that Earth had been keeping, the crash ships that governments had hidden, the technology that scientists had been studying in secret laboratories for decades, the weapons that no one knew existed. Lieutenant Colonel Yoon. Taemin stood in a hangar deep underground at Edwards Air Force Base. He was 41 years old with short black hair and a scar on his chin from a training accident years ago. He looked at the rows of aircraft in front of him. They did not look like normal planes. They were sleek and black with no wings and no visible engines. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "Project Blackstone," his commander said. 200 fighters. They can fly in air and in space. They are faster than anything the enemy has. And you will lead them. Taemin touched the cold metal of the nearest aircraft. He had trained his whole life for moments like this. He had always believed that humanity would reach the stars one day. He just never thought it would happen like this. "When do we launch?" he asked. "When the enemy gets close enough. We want them to think we are weak. We want them to come to us. And then we will show them what humans can do." 72 hours. The clock was ticking. The enemy was coming. And Earth was getting ready for the fight of its life. In her laboratory, Dr. Kim Soo-jin worked through the night. She studied the alien communication signals. She looked for weaknesses. She found something interesting. The Valkyrie ships did not think for themselves. They followed orders from a central command. If that command was disrupted, the whole fleet would fall apart. She smiled for the first time in days. She had found a way to hurt them. Now she just needed time to build a weapon. Time. That was the one thing humanity did not have enough of. But they would make do with what they had. They always did. The sun rose on the first day of humanity's greatest test. The alien fleet moved closer. The world held its breath. And somewhere deep underground, 200 pilots climbed into their secret aircraft and waited for the order to fly. The second day began with fear. People around the world woke up and looked at the sky. The alien ships were closer now. They could see them without telescopes. Dark shapes against the blue sky, blocking out pieces of the sun. Children cried. Parents held them tight. Everyone wondered if this was the end. But fear did something strange to humanity. It made them stronger. It made them work together. For the first time in history, every country on Earth had the same goal: survive. General Park Jae-ho had not slept in 36 hours. He stood in the Pentagon war room surrounded by screens showing military positions from every country. Russian generals talked to American admirals. Chinese scientists shared data with European researchers. Old secrets were revealed. Old lies were forgiven. None of that mattered anymore. "The President has authorized full disclosure," Park announced to the room. Project Blackstone is no longer classified. Neither is Project Deep Shield. Neither is anything else. Share everything. Hide nothing. Our only chance is to fight together. The officers in the room nodded. They understood. This was not a time for politics. This was a time for war. Admiral Choi Hana was 52 years old. She had spent 30 years in the Navy. She had commanded aircraft carriers and submarine fleets. She had planned battles that never happened and prepared for wars that never came. Now finally, everything she had learned would be tested. She stood on the bridge of her command ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Around her, the largest naval fleet ever assembled waited for orders. Ships from America, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and a dozen other countries. Submarines from Russia and China moved silently beneath the waves. All of them carried nuclear weapons. All of them were ready to use them. The aliens have shields, Hana said to her officers. Our reports say these shields can stop energy weapons, lasers, plasma, things like that. But they were not designed to stop physical attacks, missiles, bullets, bombs. Our weapons are primitive. But that might be our advantage. She pointed at a map on the screen. When the invasion begins, they will come through the atmosphere here and here. We will be waiting. Every submarine will fire at once. We will hit them with everything we have. The officers saluted. They knew many of them would not survive the coming battle. But they also knew they had no choice. Fight or die. Those were the only options. Deep underground at Edwards Air Force Base, Lieutenant Colonel Yoon Tae-min gathered his pilots. There were 200 of them, young men and women who had trained in secret for years. They had flown the experimental aircraft hundreds of times in simulations. But this would be their first real mission. You all know why we are here, Tae-min said. His voice was calm and steady. The enemy thinks we are weak. They think we have never left our planet. They think we are easy prey. We are going to prove them wrong. He walked along the line of pilots, looking each one in the eye. Our aircraft are faster than theirs. Our weapons are different from theirs. And we have something they do not have. We have everything to lose. Our families, our homes, our world. We fight for all of it. A young pilot named Kang Mi-young raised her hand. She was only 25 years old, one of the youngest in the squadron. Sir, what if we fail? Tae-min smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had accepted death. Then we fail fighting. We fail protecting the people we love. There is no shame in that. But I do not plan to fail. And neither should you. In her laboratory at NASA, Dr. Kim Soo-jin worked without rest. She had dark circles under her eyes. Her hair was messy. She had not eaten a real meal in 2 days. But she was close. So close, Sergeant Lee Jin-woo sat at the computer next to her. He was 29 years old, a cyber warfare specialist who had spent his career breaking into enemy systems. He had never imagined he would be trying to hack an alien network. I found the pattern, Soo-jin said suddenly. Her voice was excited. Look, every Valkyrie ship sends and receives signals on this frequency. They share information constantly. Battle plans, target data, movement orders, everything. Jin-woo leaned forward to look at her screen. So if we disrupt that frequency, their coordination falls apart, Soo-jin finished. They become confused. They make mistakes. They might even attack each other. Jin-woo nodded slowly. We need to build a virus. Something that can infect their network and spread through every ship. Can you do it? Jin-woo cracked his knuckles. Give me 24 hours. And a lot of coffee. While the scientists worked, the military prepared. Factories ran day and night, building weapons and ammunition. Civilians dug trenches and built shelters. Schools became hospitals. Shopping malls became command centers. The whole world transformed into a fortress. Captain, Beek Suhayan was a Marine. He was 33 years old, with broad shoulders and hands that had seen many fights. He'd been stationed in California when the aliens arrived. Now he was training civilians to fight. "Hold a rifle like this," he told a group of volunteers. They were ordinary people, teachers, store clerks, college students. None of them had ever fired a gun before. "Keep your finger off the trigger until you are ready to shoot. Aim for the center of the target." A teenage boy raised his hand. "Will this even work against aliens? What if they have armor?" Suhayan looked at the boy. He saw the fear in his eyes. He saw it in all of them. "Maybe it will work. Maybe it will not. But we will not know unless we try. And trying is better than giving up." The volunteers nodded. They picked up their rifles and started practicing. They were scared. They were untrained. But they were willing to fight. That was all that mattered. High Commander Drow watched the human preparations from his flagship. His officers brought him reports every hour. The humans were building defenses. They were gathering armies. They were preparing weapons. "Interesting," Drow said. "They are more organized than I expected." One of his officers, a young Volcari named Vox, looked worried. "Sir, perhaps we should increase our forces. The humans seem more capable than the initial reports suggested." Drow laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. "Increase our forces? For this tiny planet? No, we will proceed as planned. The humans may fight harder than other species, but they will break eventually. They always do." He turned back to the screen showing Earth. "In 24 hours, we begin the invasion. By this time next week, this planet will belong to the Volcari Empire. And these humans will learn what happens to species that resist us." Vox said nothing, but he felt something strange in his stomach. Something like doubt. He had seen the reports too. He had watched the humans work together. He had seen how quickly they organized, how fiercely they prepared. He had never seen a species act this way before. Maybe, he thought, maybe this invasion would not be as easy as everyone believed. But he kept this thought to himself. Doubt was weakness in the Volcari Empire. And weakness meant death. The sun set on the second day. The alien fleet was now clearly visible in the night sky. Thousands of lights where no lights should be. The whole world looked up and wondered what tomorrow would bring. In hangars and bunkers, pilots waited. In laboratories, scientists worked. In trenches and shelters, soldiers and civilians prepared to defend their home. Humanity was afraid. But humanity was also ready. And somewhere, deep in space, 17 hours away from Earth, 9,500 alien warships moved closer. Their commanders were confident. Their soldiers were eager. They had done this many times before. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The invasion began at dawn. The first wave came over the Pacific Ocean. 3,000. Volcari ships descended through Earth's atmosphere like falling stars. They expected to find scared civilians and weak defenses. They expected an easy victory. They were wrong. Lieutenant Colonel Yoon Tae-min sat in the cockpit of his experimental fighter. The aircraft hummed with power around him. His hands were steady on the controls. His heart was calm. He had waited his whole life for this moment. "All squadrons, this is Eagle 1, he said into his radio. "The enemy is entering the atmosphere. Wait for my signal. We want them deep in our territory before we strike." 200 pilots responded. They were hidden in the upper atmosphere, invisible to Volcari sensors. They watched as the enemy ships came closer, closer, closer. "Now," Taemin said, the human fighters exploded into action. They moved faster than anything the Volcari had ever seen. They twisted and turned in ways that should have been impossible. They fired weapons that burned through alien shields like paper. The The first Valkyrie ship exploded. Then another. Then 10 more. On the bridge of his flagship, High Commander Drow stood up from his chair. His face showed confusion for the first time. What is happening? He demanded. Where did those ships come from? His officers scrambled to answer. Unknown vessels, Commander. They appear to be human. They are destroying our advance fleet. Droll watched the battle on his screen. He saw his ships exploding one after another. He saw the human fighters dancing through space like angry insects. Impossible, he whispered. They were supposed to be primitive. But the humans were not done. Admiral Choi Hana stood on the bridge of her command ship. She watched the aerial battle through satellite feeds. The experimental fighters were doing well, but they were outnumbered. They could not win alone. All submarines, she ordered. Fire. Deep beneath the ocean, 47 nuclear submarines launched their missiles. The weapons rose from the water and flew into the sky. They curved toward the Valkyrie fleet over the Atlantic Ocean. They carried the most destructive power humanity had ever created. The Valkyrie saw the missiles coming. They activated their shields. Their shields were designed to stop energy weapons, lasers, plasma, advanced technology. The missiles were not advanced technology. They were simple. They were crude. They were nuclear bombs strapped to rockets. The shields did nothing. 12 explosions lit up the sky. Each one was brighter than the sun. The heat vaporized hundreds of Valkyrie ships instantly. The shock waves knocked hundreds more out of control. They crashed into each other. They fell from the sky. Admiral Hannah watched the destruction with cold eyes. Reload all tubes, she ordered. Fire again when ready. On the ground, the real horror began. Valkyrie troops landed in cities around the world. They expected the humans to run. They expected them to hide. They expected them to surrender. Captain Beak Suhan was waiting for them in Los Angeles. His Marine unit had taken position in the ruins of a shopping mall. They had set up machine guns and placed explosives on every entrance. They had been fighting for 6 hours without rest. Here they come again, one of his soldiers shouted. Valkyrie troops poured through the streets. They were tall and gray, with 4 arms and black eyes. They carried weapons that shot beams of blue energy. They moved in perfect formation, like robots. Open fire! Suhayan yelled. The humans fired everything they had. Bullets tore through alien bodies. Grenades exploded in their ranks. The Valkyrie fell by the dozens, but more kept coming. Always more. A young soldier next to Suhayan was hit by an energy beam. He fell to the ground, his chest burning. Suhayan grabbed him and pulled him behind cover. Medic! He screamed. I need a medic. Private Moon Era ran through the chaos. She was covered in blood and dirt. She had been treating wounded soldiers for hours. Her medical supplies were almost gone. But she kept going. She had to keep going. She reached the wounded soldier and started working. The burn was bad, but she could save him. She had to save him. Stay with me, she told the soldier. Look at my face. Stay with me. The soldier looked at her. He was young, maybe 19. His eyes were full of fear. Are we going to win? He asked. Era did not know the answer. But she knew what he needed to hear. Yes, she said. We are going to win. Now hold still. She saved him. She saved dozens more that day. And she never stopped. Even when the bullets flew around her. Even when the explosions shook the ground. She never stopped. In the sky above, Lieutenant Colonel Yoon Tae-min fought the battle of his life. His squadron had been reduced from 200 pilots to 140. Each lost pilot was a friend. Each explosion was a piece of his heart breaking, but he could not stop. He could not grieve. He had to fight. Eagle Squadron, form up on me, he ordered. We are going to hit their command ships. Follow my lead. The remaining pilots followed him. They dove through the enemy fleet, dodging fire from every direction. They were faster. They were more skilled. But the enemy had numbers. Kang Mi-young, the young pilot who had asked about failure, flew on Tae-min's wing. She had already destroyed 15 enemy ships. Her hands were tired. Her eyes were burning. But she kept fighting. Sir, I have a lock on their command vessel, she reported. Take the shot. Mi-young fired. Her weapon hit the Valkyrie command ship directly. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. But before she could celebrate, an enemy fighter appeared behind her. Mi-young, break left. Tae-min screamed. She was too slow. The enemy weapon hit her ship. Her fighter spun out of control, trailing smoke and fire. I am hit, she said calmly. Engines are gone. I cannot eject. Tae-min wanted to go back for her. He wanted to save her. But there were too many enemies. Too many ships. He could not. Mi-young. It is okay, sir, she said. Tell my family I love them. And keep fighting. We are winning. Her ship crashed into an enemy vessel. Both exploded. She took one more alien with her on her way out. Tae-min clenched his jaw. He wiped the tears from his eyes. And he kept fighting. By sunset, the first day of battle was over. The humans had lost 12 major cities. Millions of people were dead. The world was burning. But the Valkyrie had lost 1,800 ships. Nearly 20% of their invasion force, destroyed in a single day. High Commander Drao sat alone in his quarters. He stared at the casualty reports. He had never lost this many ships in a battle before. Never. Not against any enemy. What are these humans? He whispered to the darkness. He did not understand. He could not understand. The Valkyrie fought for glory. They fought for conquest. They fought because they were told to fight. The humans fought for something else. They fought for their families. They fought for their homes. They fought for each other, and they would not stop. No matter how many died, no matter how much they suffered, they would not stop. For the first time in his long career, High Commander Drao felt fear. The night fell over a broken world. Fires burned in ruined cities. Soldiers slept in trenches, too tired to dream. The wounded cried out in hospitals that had no more medicine. But humanity was still standing, hurt, bleeding, broken, but standing. And tomorrow, they would fight again. High Commander Drao was standing on his bridge when Lieutenant Colonel Yoon, Tae-min's fighter, crashed through the wall. He had only a moment to understand what was happening. One moment to see the human ship coming toward him. One moment to realize that everything he believed about these primitive creatures was wrong. Then the explosion took him. The greatest commander in Valkyrie history died without ever understanding how he had lost. The flagship broke apart in a ball of fire. Pieces of it scattered across space. The explosion was visible from Earth's surface. People on the ground looked up and saw a new star burning in the sky. They did not know what it meant, but they hoped. The Valkyrie fleet received no more orders from High Commander Drao. The virus had already corrupted their communications. Now, with the flagship destroyed, the corruption became complete. Ships had no commanders. Soldiers had no leaders. The greatest military force in the galaxy became a confused, terrified mob. Some Valkyrie captains tried to continue the attack. They fired on human cities. They sent troops to the ground. But without coordination, their attacks were weak and scattered. Human forces cut them down. Other captains decided to retreat. They had seen enough. They had watched their friends die. They had learned that Earth was not an easy target. They wanted to go home. By the end of the fourth day, the Valkyrie fleet was in full retreat. Ships that had arrived with pride and confidence now fled with fear and shame. They ran from a planet they had thought would be easy to conquer. They ran from creatures they had called primitive. Admiral Choi Hannah watched the retreat from her command ship. She had not slept in 5 days. Her uniform was dirty. Her face was tired. But she was smiling. "All ships," she ordered, "pursue the retreating enemy. Do not let them escape without cost." Human ships and aircraft chased the fleeing Valkyrie. They fired missiles and torpedoes. They shot down enemy ships that moved too slowly. They wanted the Valkyrie to remember this day. They wanted them to feel pain. General Park Jae-ho stood in the Pentagon War Room and watched the battle end. The screen showed Valkyrie ships leaving Earth's orbit. They showed human forces claiming victory after victory. They showed a nightmare turning into a dream. "How many enemy ships are escaping?" he asked. An officer checked the data. "Approximately 17, sir. Out of 9,500, only 17 are making it out of our solar system." Park closed his eyes. 17 out of nearly 10,000 ships. The Valkyrie had lost everything, but humanity had lost much too. The officer showed him another number. 14 million. That was how many humans had died in 4 days of fighting. Soldiers and civilians. Men and women. Adults and children. 14 million lives ended because of alien greed. Park did not celebrate. He felt no joy. He only felt tired. "Start the rescue operations," he ordered. "Find survivors. Treat the wounded. Bury the dead. We have a lot of work to do." In Los Angeles, Captain Baek Soo-hyun sat on a pile of rubble. The battle was over. The city was destroyed. But it was still their city. They had not lost it. His Marines gathered around him. They were covered in blood and dirt. Many of them were wounded. All of them were exhausted. But they were alive. "We did it, sir," one of them said. "We actually did it." Soo-hyun nodded. He did not have words. He did not need them. Private Moon Arrow walked through the ruins, looking for survivors. She had saved hundreds of lives during the battle. Human lives and alien lives. She did not count. She did not care. Every life mattered to her. She found Vox, the Valkyrie soldier she had saved, sitting against a wall. He was watching the sky. His people were running away without him. He was alone on an enemy planet. "Your people are leaving," Era said. Vox nodded. "I know. I cannot go with them. I helped you." "They would kill me for that. What will you do?" Vox looked at her. His black eyes were sad. "I do not know. I have no home now. I have no people. But I am glad I helped. Your species deserves to survive. Maybe you deserve to survive more than mine does." Ara sat down beside him. "You are welcome to stay. Not everyone will trust you, but some will. Humans are good at forgiving." Vox did not understand, but he wanted to. In space, Admiral Choi Hannah's ships found Lieutenant Colonel Yoon Tae-min. He was floating in the void, surrounded by debris from his destroyed fighter. He had ejected at the last moment, just before the impact. His suit was damaged. His body was broken, but his heart was still beating. They brought him to a medical ship. Doctors worked for 16 hours to save his life. He was in a coma for 3 weeks. When he finally woke up, the first thing he saw was Admiral Hannah standing beside his bed. "We won," she told him. Tae-min tried to smile. "It hurt. How many?" he asked. "Of your squadron? Only you survived the final attack. But we recovered your flight recorder. The world knows what you did. What all of you did." Tae-min closed his eyes. He thought of his pilots, Mi-young, all the others. They were gone. He was the only one left. "They were heroes," he whispered. "So are you." Far away, in the depths of space, 17 Valkyrie ships flew toward their home world. They were the only survivors of the greatest military disaster in their history. They carried wounded soldiers and broken officers. They carried shame and fear and confusion. But before the last ship left Earth's solar system, one captain managed to send a message to the Valkyrie High Council. His name was Captain Threll. He was old and wise. He had fought in many wars, and he had learned something important during the invasion of Earth. His message was simple: do not return to the third planet. The humans do not fight like other species. They do not surrender when they are losing. They do not run when they are afraid. They protect each other with their lives. They turn their own bodies into weapons. They find hope where there is none. They are not primitive. They are something far worse. They are unpredictable. They are united. They are relentless. Do not go to Earth again. Do not provoke them. Do not give them a reason to come to us. The humans are the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and they have just learned that they are not alone. 1 year later, General Park Jeho stood at the United Earth Memorial in Washington, D.C. The memorial was a wall of black stone. On it were carved the names of 14 million people, every human who had died during the invasion. It stretched for miles. It would take days to read every name. Beside him stood the survivors. Dr. Kim Soo-jin, now director of Earth's Planetary Defense Initiative. Admiral Choi Hana, commander of humanity's first interstellar fleet. Lieutenant Colonel Yoon Tae-min, still recovering from his injuries, but alive. Sergeant Lee Jin-woo, leader of a new cyber warfare division. Captain Baek Soo-hyun, training the first generation of Space Marines. Private Moon Era, now a doctor, running a hospital for both humans and a few Valkyrie who had surrendered. They looked at the memorial. They remembered the dead. They honored the fallen. But they also looked at the sky. The stars no longer seemed distant and peaceful. They were warnings. They were threats. They were the next battlefield. Humanity had survived first contact with alien life. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Earth was not a target. Earth was a fortress. Earth was home to the most stubborn, most determined, most unpredictable species in the universe. Ships were being built. Soldiers were being trained. Scientists were developing new weapons. Humanity was preparing, not for defense. Not anymore. Next time, humanity would go to the stars. Next time, humanity would be the invaders. Next time, the galaxy would learn to fear the species that had refused to die. General Park looked at the sky one last time. Then he turned and walked away. There was work to do, and humanity was just getting started. Day 3 of the invasion. The world was exhausted. Cities were burning. Armies were broken. The death count rose every hour. But humanity refused to give up. They could not give up. There was nowhere to run. Dr. Kim Soo-jin had not slept in 4 days. Her eyes were red. Her hands shook from too much coffee. Her laboratory was a mess of wires, computers, and half-eaten food. But she had done it. The virus was ready. Sergeant Lee Jin-woo looked at the code on his screen. He had worked alongside Soo-jin for 72 hours without rest. He had written more lines of code in 3 days than he had written in his entire career. And now it was finished. Will it work? Soo-jin asked. Jin-woo shrugged. Only one way to find out. General Park Jeho arrived at the laboratory with armed guards. He looked older than he had 4 days ago. The weight of the world was on his shoulders. Millions of people were dead. Millions more would die before this was over. Every decision he made cost lives. Show me, he said. Soo-jin explained the virus. The Valkyrie ships communicated through a quantum network. They shared information constantly. Battle plans, enemy positions, attack orders. Everything was connected. Everything depended on that connection. If we upload this virus to their network, Sujin said, it will spread to every ship in the fleet. It will corrupt their data. It will send false orders. It will make them blind and confused. Park nodded slowly. How do we upload it? Jinwoo pointed to a piece of alien technology on the table. It was a communication device taken from a crashed Volcari ship. One of the few pieces of enemy equipment they had captured intact. Through this, it still has a link to their network. If I can access it, I can upload the virus directly. Park looked at the device. Such a small thing. Such a simple plan. But it could change everything. Do it, he ordered. Jinwoo sat down at his computer. His fingers danced across the keyboard. Lines of code flowed across the screen. The alien device hummed and glowed. It was working. In the Volcari fleet, something strange began to happen. Hi, Commander Dryle received a message from one of his captains. The message said that human forces had surrendered in Europe. Dryle sent ships to accept the surrender. But when those ships arrived, they found human soldiers waiting with weapons. It was a trap. It was a lie. Another message came. A different captain reported that Dryle had ordered a retreat. But Dryle had given no such order. Ships began moving in different directions. Some attacked. Some retreated. Some turned and fired on their own allies. What is happening? Dryle screamed at his officers. Why are my ships not responding? His officers had no answer. The screen showed chaos. Ships colliding. Ships firing at nothing. Ships receiving orders that made no sense. The virus was spreading. On Earth. General Park Jae-ho saw the confusion in the enemy fleet. He knew this was his chance. Maybe his only chance. All forces, he ordered. Attack. Everything we have. Attack now. The world responded. Every airplane on Earth launched. Military jets flew alongside civilian planes that had been equipped with weapons. Old helicopters from museums took to the sky. Crop dusters carried homemade bombs. Anything that could fly was flying. Every ship on the ocean opened fire. Missiles streaked across the sky. Torpedoes cut through the water. The world threw everything it had at the alien invaders. Lieutenant Colonel Yoon Tae-min led what remained of his squadron into battle. He had only 17 pilots left. 17 out of 200. Each one was tired beyond words. Each one had lost friends. Each one wanted revenge. This is it, Tae-min said through his radio. The enemy is confused. This is our moment. We push through their fleet. We find their flagship. And we end this. The pilots followed him. They flew through the chaos of the Volcari fleet. Ships crashed into each other around them. Weapons fired in random directions. The virus had turned the mighty Volcari armada into a storm of confusion. On the ground, Captain Baek Soo-hyun led his Marines through the streets of Los Angeles. The Volcari troops were confused too. Their orders made no sense. Some fought. Some retreated. Some stood still, waiting for commands that never came. Push forward, Soo-hyun ordered. Take back every block. Every building. Every inch. His soldiers followed him. They were exhausted. They were wounded. But they smelled victory. And that smell gave them strength. Private Moon Era moved with the advancing troops. She had run out of medical supplies hours ago. Now she used bandages torn from clothing. She used alcohol from abandoned bars to clean wounds. She used anything she could find. She found a wounded Volcari soldier in an alley. He was lying against a wall, bleeding from a wound in his chest. His forearms were weak. His black eyes looked up at her with something like fear. Any other soldier would have killed him. He was the enemy. He had come to destroy humanity. He deserved death. But Era was not any other soldier. She was a medic. She had sworn to save lives. All lives. She knelt beside him and started treating his wound. The Valkyrie soldier did not understand. He tried to speak, but his voice was weak. Why? He managed to say, "Why help me? I am your enemy." Era did not stop working, because helping people is what I do. It is what humans do. We do not let others suffer if we can stop it. The soldier stared at her. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. The species that his people were trying to destroy was showing him mercy. It made no sense. It was illogical, but it changed something inside him. "My name is Vox," he said. "I am an officer in the Valkyrie fleet. I can help you." Era finished bandaging his wound. "Help us how?" "I know where High Commander Drell is. I know the location of his flagship. If you can destroy it, the fleet will fall apart completely." Era looked at him for a long moment. Then she called for backup. The information reached General Park Jae-ho within minutes. He immediately sent it to Lieutenant Colonel Yoon Tae-min. "Eagle 1, we have the location of the enemy flagship. Sending coordinates now. Can you reach it?" Tae-min looked at his instruments. The flagship was deep in the enemy fleet. Getting there would be almost impossible. Getting out would be completely impossible. "I can reach it," he said. "But this will be a one-way trip." His pilots heard him. They knew what he was asking them to do. They knew they would not survive. One by one, they responded. "I am with you, sir. Let us end this. For Earth. For everyone we lost." Taemin smiled. He had never been more proud of anyone in his life. "Eagle Squadron," he said. "Let us go kill a commander." The 17 remaining fighters accelerated toward the enemy flagship. They flew faster than they had ever flown before. They dodged fire from confused Valkyrie ships. They weaved through clouds of debris and burning wreckage. They lost 2 pilots on the way in. Then 3 more. Then 4, but the survivors kept going. They did not look back. They did not slow down. The flagship appeared on their screens. It was enormous. Bigger than any ship Taemin had ever seen. It was covered with weapons and shields. It was a fortress in space. "All fighters," Taemin ordered. "Focus fire on the shield generators. Make me an opening." The pilots attacked. Their weapons hammered the flagship shields. The shields flickered and sparked. They weakened, more pilots died. Their ships exploded around Taemin. But the shields kept weakening. Finally, an opening appeared. A gap in the defenses. Just big enough for one ship. Tae-min turned off his weapon systems. He redirected all power to his engines. He aimed his ship at the bridge of the flagship. "This is Eagle 1, he said into his radio. "Tell my family I love them. Tell Earth that we did not give up. And tell those alien bastards that humanity says hello." He accelerated toward the flagship. His ship was burning. His instruments were failing. He could not eject. He did not want to eject. He thought of his parents. He thought of his friends. He thought of the world he was saving. Then he crashed into the bridge of the flagship. The explosion destroyed everything.